once again.
If Voldemort's building up an army, then I want to fight.
It's your turn now.
Tyranny will rise.
I will have order.
And a rebellion
The Ministry's gonna have a full uprising on their hands.
will begin. Saturday night, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix on Pearl. Don't miss Chief Executive C.Y. Leung's policy address. Live Wednesday morning at 10:59 on Pearl.
I know how to survive.
It's really frightening.
What can be done about an invincible invader with an insatiable appetite running roughshod over the ecosystem?
They are evolutionarily successful.
Tuesday, Wingxing Photo Supplies 40th Anniversary presents Conquerors at 9:30 on Pearl Spectacular.
Pro-democracy media tycoons' home and business attacked with firebombs. Is there a link between the firebomb attacks and newspaper thefts in Hong Kong? And millions around the world march against extremism. Good evening. A criminal investigation is underway tonight after firebombs were thrown at the Kowloon home of media tycoon Jimmy Lai and at the headquarters of Next Media in Cheung Kwan O. No one was injured in either attack. Stephanie Choi reports.
Apple Daily released footage recorded by surveillance cameras outside Jimmy Lai's residence on Kadoorie Avenue. At around 1 a.m., a 7-seater vehicle could be seen parked outside Lai's gate. A person later got out of the vehicle and hurled a flaming glass bottle towards the entrance of Lai's residence. He fled soon afterwards. By the time police arrived, the security guard had extinguished the fire, leaving behind scorch marks. Around the same time that Lai's home came under attack, another 7-seater vehicle pulled up outside the headquarters of Next Media in Cheung Kwan O. Someone threw a firebomb at the main gate of the building and did the same at another entrance. Less than an hour after the firebombs were thrown, police found 2 torched 7-seater vehicles on Chak On Road in Sham Shui Po and Sham Mong Road in Cheung Sha Wan. The vehicles had no license plates on them. Apple Daily chief editor Yip Yat Kin visited Lai's residence at around noon and expressed concern that attacks against Next Media might escalate. He said the company has stepped up security measures. Police have classified the incident as arson. Today, Secretary for Justice Rimsky-Yun condemned the attack. Regardless of the victims' political beliefs or social rank, Hong Kong as a lawful society will not tolerate and will condemn such acts of violence, Yun said. He added that the Department of Justice will follow up on the incident as it would other criminal acts. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
Meanwhile, police are hunting for suspects after a dramatic incident in Hong Kong this morning. A police officer fired his gun 4 times as he chased a van with stolen stacks of newspapers. Police aren't saying if the incident is connected with this morning's firebomb attacks. Owen Fung reports.
The shots were fired on Chatham Road South near the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Many copies of the Apple Daily were scattered on the road. Police officers wearing bulletproof vests were sent to the area. Officers initially closed down 2 carriageways to facilitate police investigations. At around 9:45 a.m., the area was expanded to 4 Yau Ma Tei-bound carriageways. Officers from the police tactical unit formed a line to search for the bullets on the road. The search operation lasted for around half an hour, and by 11:30 a.m., all 4 carriageways had been reopened. But none of the bullets were found. According to the police, a team of plainclothes officers on anti-theft patrol in Hong Kong saw a man stealing newspapers on Tak Man Street around 5 o'clock this morning. The newspapers were left on the roadside waiting to be picked up by the vendor. When the officers tried to intervene, the suspect, who's in his 20s, boarded a blue minivan which was also carrying another woman. A sergeant managed to get into the vehicle, but the suspect suddenly drove off to Chatham Road. It is believed that the officer fired his weapon 4 times while he struggled with the culprit. The sergeant was eventually pushed out of the van. Police Superintendent Lau Shu Wing says the vehicle ran over the officer's right calf as it sped off. The injured officer was taken to Queen Elizabeth Hospital for treatment. The police are appealing to witnesses to contact the Kowloon West Regional Crime Unit. Meanwhile, police have refused to comment on whether this incident is related to the petrol bomb attacks on former Next Media chairman Jimmy Lai's house and the Next Media building in Cheung Kwan O. But it's not the first time theft has happened in the area. Last Friday, 400 copies of newspaper were stolen from another store in the vicinity of the incident this morning. A representative of newspaper retailers said unattended newspapers were stolen occasionally. He said the culprit in this morning's incident could be someone working in the trade. Owen Fung, TVB News.
Civic Party legislator Tanya Chan has been released by police unconditionally after she was arrested earlier today in connection with her involvement in the Occupy protests. Chan was among a list of 30 key activists who had recently been asked to visit the police headquarters to help with investigations. She was the first of the group to be arrested. Chan refused bail and earlier said she was ready to await trial in a detention cell. During her stay at the headquarters, she was shown footage allegedly showing her inciting others to partake in illegal rallies. Police are reserving the right to prosecute Chan at a later stage. There are renewed calls for international cooperation to fight extremism following last night's rally in Paris to remember the victims of last week's terror attacks in the French capital. Tony Sabine with more on what's being called the largest demonstration in French history.
Paris was a city united last night. Young and old, religious and non-religious, men, women and children, citizens of France and the world. They came together in a show of defiance against a poisonous ideology used to justify murder and mayhem. It was in that spirit that more than 40 world leaders, including Jewish and Muslim statesmen, linked arms to lead more than 1 million people through the streets of Paris. It was an unprecedented rally to pay tribute to the victims of last week's terror attacks, which left 17 people dead, many of whom worked for the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. Amid a sea of flags and banners, President François Hollande and the others set off from the city's Place de la République. Even opposition leaders from some of the biggest EU nations were there.
I wanted to be here from the United Kingdom because we stand in solidarity with the people of France today.
The United States was represented by its ambassador, the Deputy Secretary of State, and Attorney General Eric Holder, who called for a unified stance against the extremist ideology, which was used to justify last week's atrocities.
Only if we work together through sharing of information, by pooling our resources, will we be able to ultimately defeat those who are in a struggle with us about our fundamental values.
At least 3.7 million people took part in yesterday's marches across France, with more than 1.4 million rallying in Paris alone. The rally began in respectful silence for the victims from Charlie Hebdo and those who died at a kosher supermarket where militants took hostages in a separate attack. The attacks have tested France's proud commitment to its liberties, which authorities may now curtail to ensure greater security. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
A widening investigation is helping police learn more about the Paris gunmen. They're also hoping to track down their accomplices. An internet video surfaced featuring Amédi Koulibaly, the man who killed a French policewoman and 4 people at the kosher supermarket. In the video, he pledges allegiance to Islamic State and explains how the attacks would unfold. Police want to find the person who shot and posted the video, which was edited after the attacks. Koulibaly also claims he worked with the Kouachi brothers who stormed the offices of the Charlie Hebdo newspaper. Koulibaly's partner, Hayat Boumediene, is wanted in connection with the killings and is believed to have fled to Syria. Divers have retrieved one black box from the AirAsia plane crash and located the other in the Java Sea. Sonia Artero reports.
The cockpit voice recorder was found just hours after officials announced that the flight data recorder had been dislodged from beneath a piece of the aircraft's wing. A team of Indonesian Navy divers are credited with the find. Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Chief confirms the data recorder is now headed to Jakarta to be analyzed. The cockpit voice recorder remains wedged beneath heavy wreckage, and divers are struggling to free it at a depth of 32 meters. Once it too is plucked from the sea, it will undergo the same scrutiny. The two instruments are vital to understanding what brought Flight 8501 down on December 28th, killing all 162 people on board. Experts say the final determination could take up to 2 weeks. Key points investigators will look for include the plane's vertical and horizontal speeds and the engine's temperature. Equally telling are the final conversations between the captain and co-pilot. The slow-moving hunt for the doomed airliner got a boost over the weekend when the Airbus A320's tail was hoisted out of the sea. So far, only 48 bodies have been recovered. That's why searchers are feverishly hunting for the plane's fuselage. That's the main section of the plane's cabin where many of the victims' bodies are believed to be entombed. At a family assistance center in Surabaya, some relatives are still hopeful their loved ones are alive. The last contact the pilots had with air traffic control was halfway into a 2-hour journey from Surabaya to Singapore. Faced with stormy weather, they asked to climb to a higher elevation, but were denied permission due to heavy air traffic. 4 minutes later, the plane dropped off the radar screen and crashed into the Java Sea. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
South Korean President Park Geun-hye says she's open to holding a summit meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Park's comments come on the heels of Kim's New Year's address. The North Korean leader stated that if the atmosphere and the environment are right, there is no reason not to hold a high-level summit. But just last Friday, Pyongyang rejected a call by South Korea's parliament for a resumption of negotiations. In addition to addressing North Korea's human rights, the South is pushing the North to allow the reunion between families still separated by the Korean War. The two sides are still technically at war since the 1950-53 Korean War ended in a truce, not a peace treaty. Back locally, more than 14,000 teachers in Hong Kong are being forced to work for lower salaries because of an outdated salary system. But as Diane To reports, next week's policy address could mean changes are coming. Diane To reports.
In Hong Kong, more than 90% of secondary and primary school teachers hold university degrees. But schools are required to hire staff under 2 separate streams, that is, graduate and non-graduate teacher positions. The starting salaries don't vary too much. For example, a primary school non-graduate teacher will start at about $23,000 a month, while a degree holder will get about $1,000 more. But at the top of the pay scale, the 2 streams differ by nearly $10,000. As there's not enough graduate teacher positions, there are now more than 14,000 teachers with at least a bachelor's degree who have essentially been forced to take a pay cut by being hired under the non-graduate stream. Education sector lawmaker Ip Kin Yoon said this should be changed to make it fairer and improve teacher morale. Ip added that he hopes the government will take a bigger step soon and make all teaching places degree holder positions. According to sources, the upcoming policy address will suggest raising in phases the proportion of graduate teacher positions in primary schools to reach an aim of 65% degree holders. It's currently a 50-50 balance between graduate and non-graduate positions. The ratio in secondary schools is expected to be kept the same, with 85% being degree holders. According to sources, the government's long-term goal is to require all teachers to have at least a university degree, but there is no time frame for that just yet. Diane To, TVB News.
Today was the deadline to apply